Hi, welcome to Comic Beat Insider, the weekly streamcast about movies and TV and things that we like to watch at home. I'm Heidi McDonald, the editor-in-chief of The Beat at comicsbeat.com.
And I'm Jimmy Aquino, the host and producer of the weekly podcast Comic News Insider, covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture at comicnewsinsider.com.
And I'm guesting Erin Crosby. I come from my own self. I don't.
Was magically formed.
I just magically formed that I'm not a part of the comic book world, but I love being a guest on the panel of whatever you guys are talking about. It's the most
And
fun.
we promise this isn't a continuation of Musicals Month, guys. So,
No.
Oddly enough, it's not at all.
but you never know.
Yes.
Maybe it is.
Maybe, well, Erin, I'm delighted to have Erin join us.
Yes.
So this month we are kicking off a new series here on CBI. It is comic book movies that were ahead of their time.
Yeah.
Now, what do we mean by that? Jimmy and I aren't
It's got
even
multiple reasons, for sure.
But we wanted to talk about some comic book movies, of which there are now hundreds, and maybe some ones that were a little less known, but also ones that maybe didn't land properly when they first were released.
Maybe weren't as appreciated. Maybe didn't get great promotions, or maybe did, but still sort of never really found that audience. Things like that. So.
Yeah. So, and we are kicking things off with Mystery Men, the 1999 Kinka Usher comedy action film based on, right? Yes. So that's one of the mysteries.
Yes.
Mysteries about Mystery Men. That came out with, I mean, guys, it's just one of the all-time great comedy casts.
Insane cast.
This cast is fire.
I mean, it's
fire.
Fire. I mean, even the cameos are like Louise Lasser and Praz from the
he's a bit more in the cameo, but yeah, Praz.
Yeah.
But like Doug Jones is Dane
Greg
Cook.
Kinnear.
Yeah, I mean, but Ben Stiller and Janine Garofalo, one of our favorite comedy duos, Hank Azaria, Paul Rubens.
Yeah, oh my God.
Oscar winner Jeffrey Rush.
Huge.
In his first big Hollywood movie. Yeah,
his first big Hollywood movie. How is that possible?
Yeah, he had done Shine, which I saw, and of course won all the awards in '96. And then he did some, other bigger films with like Les Miserables, the non-musical one, and some other one. But they weren't like these big. They were still sort of indie films,
But I mean, was it a big Hollywood movie? And who am I forgetting?
Lena Olin.
Wes Studi. And Cal Mitchell. I mean, and that's just the top liners, and the Lena Olin and Eddie
Izzard
and the shoveler.
And just in the first 2 minutes, Tom Waits.
Yeah, I know.
like
hitting on the
Artie Lang in the opening too.
Yeah, I mean, it literally is one of the greatest cult casts ever.
Lena Olin, criminally underused.
Yeah,
she had 2 lines in the boardroom scene and never spoke again.
There's just too many. There's too many.
Claire Forlani.
There's just every role is just loaded in this. There's just not enough time for everybody to.
Well, Artie Lang was
I mentioned for sure.
And yet.
William H. Macy, did we say William H. Macy? Yeah.
We did. And my favorite line, we've got a blind date with
Goody Mob.
And she just ordered the lobster.
Yeah.
But okay, so this movie came out in 1999. Why do we say it's ahead of its time? Well, in 1999, hard it is to believe, a mere 22 years ago, the only superhero movies that were coming out were Batman films directed by Joel Schumacher. Now Blade had come out the previous year, but I think that was considered kind of a horror movie, not a comic book movie.
Okay, yeah, fair enough, yeah.
And I think that I guess the main reason is that the parody of the superhero tropes in this film were just, there wasn't enough to parody at that point.
Also, people were kind of just like, also like I said, like it was announced in '97. But along with a ton of other comic book adaptations, including Blade, Superman Lives, X-Men, the Fantastic Four, the Hulk, Captain America. These are just announcements that were made. Submariner, Iron Man, Daredevil, so Hellboy, Concrete was even announced back then, Green Hornet, 20-something other titles. So it was part of this whole kind of first wave of, I guess, comic book films.
Yeah, but they all came out afterwards. Like they literally,
Dick Tracy was before that. And that was, I think, the most similar when it comes to the fun, the color, the
But also,
comedy.
99 was a big year because I was speaking of, as we off air earlier, I was doing West Side Story, and it was the summertime. We were away, and so what do we do on our day off? Go to the movies, and that was the summer of The Matrix,
Mm.
Uh-huh.
the Phantom Menace, which we say now, but then we're like, yes, we're
Yeah.
waiting for it.
I know.
The South Park movie,
Hmm.
uh,
Sixth Sense. The Sixth
yes,
Sense.
yes, Wild Wild West. Oh,
Mm. Yeah.
but yeah, all these like big films came out. It was a big year, so it definitely got lost in the shuffle, I think,
Yeah.
amongst it.
And I, I will say, when you see the credits, one of the names is Mike Richardson, who is the
Hmm.
publisher of Dark Horse,
Yeah.
and The Mask had come out like earlier in the night,
Yes.
and and also Time Cop. So there had been these,
Yeah.
I mean, Mike is a very accomplished in Hollywood. I mean, his
Mhm.
name is on a lot of movies, even some movies that you don't expect it to be on.
Hmm.
Obviously Hellboy films, but I mean, he's been very effective at getting his Dark Horse properties, to
Nice.
producers. And so yeah, that's definitely part of the story. But let's as we do tell our origin story with the Mystery
Mm.
Men. So the Mystery Men were created by cartoonist Bob Burton, who's kind of an indie guy. There's only one Bob Burton. And he published a comic called Flaming Carrot back in the 80s, which was one of my favorite comics growing up. Um, wink, wink. The humor in it was just hit me right in that spot. It's very dry, unique.
Mm.
There's just nobody like Bob Burton. I just read one of the flaming. Danger can be anywhere, lurking, sneaking, tricking, sneezing, creeping, unseen, like an animated salad bowl, whisking around under the bed with spiders on it. I am sentinel of justice, vanguard of fortitude, standing like an iron rock in the river of crime, weirdness, and mayhem. So Bob's just a little bit of a poet of wackiness or
Mhm.
eccentricity, I guess. Anyway, I loved his
Yeah.
work. I loved the Mystery Man. He was an endless fountain. He just had index cards with characters. So I was very predisposed to like this movie when it came out. And I actually think though that I must have had something personal going on when it was released because I do
Hmm.
remember going to the theater to see it and being excited for it because of the cast, but I guess the reviews were horrible by the
Yeah.
time I'd seen it. And because it was very, wasn't well reviewed when it came
It
out.
did not do well. It
It
did.
did
It
not.
made 33 million against a 68 million budget.
Yeah, that is
Woo!
Yeah.
nothing. And
No
let me
good.
tell you, like I rewatched this last night as I always do. I did not remember anything about this movie except Invisible Boy.
Really?
Really?
Mhm. But I
I
hadn't
remember. I.
seen it in 22 years.
That's true. It's fair. I
Okay,
haven't seen it in a while either.
22 years. Um, so I was one of the ones who didn't land with me. So, and then until we started doing this, and I was like, Mystery Man, what the hell? It's time to revisit Mystery Man.
Hmm.
And here we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if I saw it in theaters. I can't remember. But I know I definitely used to own the DVD. I think we were talking about this. I used to have tons of DVDs, and I recently, at the beginning of lockdown, um, I just put them in my lobby and gave them like people to take away. There was a giant box, and I know Mystery Man was in there because I remember the cover distinctly.
Mhm.
And there's probably a billion movies in there that I could use now for Comic Beat Insider that I've now given away. But but yeah. So I know I eventually owned it and watched it several times over the years, but probably not since early 2000s. Have I seen it? But I had some things that obviously like Janine Garofalo, who I had the biggest crush on for
Yeah,
years.
stand in line, buddy. I mean, she's
Oh
just
my
I'm
God.
in line with you.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
obsessed.
I
90s,
loved her so
90s.
I'm
much.
obsessed
I mean, I
with
still
her.
love her. I'm just saying,
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
oh, I was still. So I remember her distinctly, and I also remember because I remember the audition scene distinctly. Because I remember all the different people. I didn't remember exactly everyone that came. I remember like certain ones, and that came out. So that stuck with me a little bit. Um, I forgot how really long it is, which I think is another big reason it didn't do well. 2 hours for a superhero comedy movie. They could have shaved off
There,
30 minutes.
there was some fat to cut for sure.
30 minutes.
Let's-
They could have definitely like cut characters. They could have cut the Sphinx as great as lines he had. They could have cut even Claire's character. They could have maybe had Janine and Ben maybe have the I hate you but then fall in love type, romance,
Mm,
something like that. Could have worked. But I'm rewriting this film right now.
mm,
Um, but I never read the Flaming Carrot comics. I knew of them because it was like it's literally Aaron, if you don't know, it's literally a man's body with a
mm.
giant carrot for a head that goes down like it's a carrot. So his carrot goes all the way down to here,
this sounds
like
familiar.
there. Yeah, so I've read a handful of them, but I wasn't familiar. and the Mystery Men were sort of were introduced into the Flaming Carrot comics, as I found out, and then they ended up getting like their own little mini series of comics. But I think only two made it into the film, actual characters. The other ones they made up for the film. I think Furious and
Shoveler was
Shoveler, yeah, Shoveler and Furious were
definitely,
the only two that were from the comics.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think I definitely saw it, but it's been probably, again, like you, maybe 20 years or 15 years
Oh,
since I've
wow.
seen it. So yeah. How about
So
you,
I
Erin?
might have seen it more recently on
Mm,
purpose. I mean,
excellent. On
I
purpose.
on purpose. I did.
Purpose.
I did not see it in the theater. Because in '99 I was in college. I was in conservatory, and that's all I did. So it wasn't until I didn't see a television show or a movie in a theater for a couple years. But when I had this roommate, who's still one of my very dear friends, we moved in together. She owned a copy of Mystery Men. She owned a copy of Galaxy Quest,
Yeah.
and then had DVDs of Sex in the City, and that's all we watched were those three things.
One episode. I've seen one episode my entire life.
It doesn't hold up well. I'm not gonna lie. It's not.
No desire to see.
You don't need to. It's fine. But that's what we would sit and watch. Between those three things, we are obsessed with Galaxy Quest, Mystery Men, and Sex in the City, and that was it. And
That's
as
the
like
90s.
early 20
90s.
something, girls in 2000, 2001.
Yeah. For sure.
But and I instantly became, again, because the cast, like I love and still love
Ooh.
Janine Garofalo,
God,
and
so good.
especially because we were also Simpsons fans, so you have those characters. I was a huge Pee Wee Herman fan, so I loved it. Like Paul Rubens was in it. The cast for me right away was like the biggest. I was like, I don't care what happens in this. I think these people are genius,
I didn't care what happens.
and I just love it.
Yeah, it's definitely got like a very storied history. Like, let's start with the director, Kinka Usher. Nobody knows who he is because all he ever did was commercial.
My husband is in advertising, and Kinka did one of my husband's
There you
commercials
go. Look at that.
for Pella Windows.
Yeah,
So-
which he's
so-
a very, very successul commercial director.
So we have this bombshell here in Comic Beat Insider that Kinka Usher is alive and working.
Mhm.
So
I didn't know that. I didn't know that was a.
no, but I mean, it's
okay.
just like
one knows
it's
yeah.
super rare. Like
Yeah.
that's one of the other things about this movie. It's like just super rare for a movie to come out, and I mean, it's well made. I mean, there's
It's
yeah,
it's got a $68 million budget.
Yeah,
in
I
fact,
mean,
which is probably now
the
100
pacing
million. Yeah.
right? Is the pacing a tad slow? Yes, but I
Yeah.
think it's all just stuff because it's just in love with. I mean, it's a little bit in love with its characters, but I found them super lovable. I didn't mind spending the extra time with the characters,
No.
but I mean, again, didn't remember, but I forgot that it's set in Supreme City, like. And they created this whole like Dark City Matrix world for it, which we kind of.
Well, they still use some sets, the leftover sets they use from Casper and also Batman Forever.
I looked at
Didn't
it.
it feel like a very
Forever.
Batman? Didn't it
The
feel
arches,
like it? Yeah.
like some of the
Yeah.
arches of the. I was
Yeah.
like, that's Batman. That's Batman.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And
Yeah.
but I mean, I think that's part of the kind of conceit of the movie is that, it opens on these big aerial views of this sparkling, Anton First city. And then, but we just see people walking up and down city streets that are, just like Brooklyn, Cobble Hill. And so we don't really see, there's some scenes where we see this futuristic, Blade Runner-ish world. But I mean, the world building is huge in this movie. It's just it's got everything in it. As I watched it last night, I mean, it's got, these great sets, this great cast, got some really funny lines. And like, I mean, so again, Kinka Usher made this 2-hour movie that's very well made.
That he apparently did not have a good time doing. Because,
right.
Again, he never directed anything again.
That was it.
And in
He
the 2011
never-
interview, Hank Azaria claimed that during production, Kinka declared, "I'm going back to commercials when this is done. I've had enough. I'd much rather do my cool little 1-minute shorts than I make than deal with all this nonsense."
I mean, it pays more. Why not?
Yeah.
Exactly.
It
It
does.
is. It's like 1-minute shorts.
So that was it. So he did not want
Yeah.
to. He was done. It was just too much for him. So,
Yeah. Well,
because apparently, I mean, it's pretty obvious when you watch it that you've got this great cast of comedic actors and writers, and they're improvise. They're writing their own lines.
There was a lot of improvisation.
Oh,
They were
totally.
constantly changing stuff on set. And apparently they argued about like to figure out what was funniest, and they created a lot. And especially Janine and Ben, obviously, who had worked together and who were friends. A lot of their scenes, you could tell, like, oh, I bet that was improvised.
Oh,
Yeah.
you just
Really
because
fun. Yeah,
also everybody just talk,
yeah,
like talks in such a crazy way. I mean, I thought Ben Stiller was hilarious in this movie. The stories
yeah.
scrabbling up
He's
the
really funny.
wall. He's great.
Well,
I
he
just
was
When he's
offered.
when they what's that opening scene where they're on top of the car and he's
Oh
just
yeah.
angrily trying to get the
Yeah.
medallion like
Oh,
off
that's
the
what you mean.
top,
Yeah, in the middle of the scene. Yeah.
like, and there's no success, but
He
he
was
can't do it.
offered the Blue Raja part first and turned it down. Even at
Mm.
one point offered to direct it, but didn't want to, and then didn't want to do it. And then Janine got it, and she convinced him to come take the role, come like do the movie. And he was like, "Well, I don't want the Blue Raja, because I played the nerd before, and I don't want to like keep playing the nerd." So that's why he ended up being
Um,
Mr. Furious. But was also interesting, like I wanted to say about the setting, because we did mention Batman Forever, and I know Tim Burton didn't direct Batman Forever, but it did have a very almost like they were either homaging to Burton-esque, even with the music and the way they're doing it. And there is a unsubstantiated rumor that Burton secretly directed this.
oh,
It's
ha, no
it's never
way.
been proven,
Well, it's interesting you
disproven,
say that though,
but
because there's
yeah, because it's like because especially with like the casting of certain people he had worked with, um, and there was like animation from Henry
some
Selick, who's a longtime Burton collaborator, and
some of the
things like that.
costumes and makeup felt very Burton-esque,
Yes, even some of the music started sounding like a little
and
Danny
some of
Elfman, and I was like, hmm.
there
Uh,
was, yeah,
They
just a
clearly did that on
few.
purpose, where they're like, okay, we're doing a little parody homage to
You
Burton.
guys, you guys, you guys. I'm trying. That's what I'm trying to say. Of course,
What?
it's homage to Batman because there
Yeah,
weren't any other superhero
Yeah.
movie
right. Yeah.
like
Well,
this.
there's also, like you said too, there's also a little Blade Runner there. There's also a little,
Yeah. But I
other
mean,
things
that's
there.
in
But yeah,
every movie. Every
yeah,
movie is referencing Blade Runner,
hmm
that
yeah,
after it came out. So, just like after The Matrix came out, every movie
Oh
referenced
God,
Blade
yeah.
yeah,
Runner, right?
yeah.
But yeah, that's why that's all there was. That's why I'm saying this movie is ahead of its time. And it reminded me of Deadpool, especially Deadpool 2 with
Hmm.
the tryout scene and
hmm
everything. And obviously Deadpool is the movie that this wanted to be, where it's just taken the piss out of the superhero genre completely. But there have been 40 movies since then for Deadpool to remove piss from. So
Well, it reminded me of the Tick, like the original comics, because the original
the
comics, and I
tick.
don't know what came first, the Tick or the Flaming Carrot. You probably
Flaming
know.
carrot
I did.
came
Okay.
first, but the
So
tick came shortly
Ben
after.
Edlund was probably, I'm sure, very influenced by it, because
Mhm.
the Tick has that too, the very quirky, weird characters, weird names, and the weird powers, and it's so funny. I love like the comic is
Mhm.
great. I love both of the first series is much better. I love with Patrick Warburton, but it's so the cartoon was fantastic, but it really had a very Tick feel to it as well. That's just absurdist comedy, and crazy. Um, but yeah, so but yeah, I enjoyed it that way.
Yeah.
Um,
So anyway, let's talk a little bit, run through the movie a little bit. It
oh,
opens.
also, Danny DeVito was actually approached
Oh,
first
right,
to
right.
both star and directed it as the shoveler and directed, but he apparently like loved it so much he had to turn it down because he couldn't like it was too much. It was a huge movie, and like same thing. Stiller was like it was too big of a movie, is why I didn't direct it. But yeah, a lot of people were approached to either be in
It,
it. Vince
it, wa-
Vaughn, Ving Rhames, things like that. Yeah,
it was just too ahead of
yeah,
its time.
yeah,
It
yeah. I think
was The
that's it.
world
Yeah.
was not ready for the Mystery Men.
Yeah,
But the world isn't ready for them in the film either. So we open on
Yeah.
this Supreme City, which is this glitzy,
yeah.
glamorous, Batman-inspired, city, and then we go to some kind of like award ceremony at an old folks' home or something.
It's like a party. It
I
was
think
like a
it's a
party.
party.
I
It's a
think it's like
Party.
a
This is
party.
party. Yeah.
party, and there's Tom Waits, and if you're the 90s were my salad days, and there's watching this movie is just hitting me in so many nostalgic buttons of people that I used to hang out with and things we
Mhm.
talked about. And, there was no God bigger in our firmament than Tom Waits.
I
Yeah,
thought you were gonna say you used to hang out with Tom Waits. I'm like,
oh
what?
yeah.
Really?
Well, his daughter likes comics actually. So
Nice.
she, one of many dads who would be at the con with his kids. But yeah, I mean, he was the 90s cult guy. He is the go-to cult guy for the
You figured
90s.
out who your cool friends were when you started talking about music, and if they didn't like Tom Waits, you were quickly not friends anymore.
Right,
Like,
I feel
exactly.
the same. I feel the same way about Hanson. If you didn't like Mbop, then we're not friends. Sorry. Sorry.
Yeah. So, but that's some toughs break in to rob the senior citizens, and here to the
Red
rescue come.
Eyes.
Yes, come the red. That's right. Every team in this movie has like a funny name, but
Yeah.
comes the our heroes. These wannabe super right. Oh, isn't that cute? Finally, a guest appearance for
He's
Erin.
sneaking around back
I
there.
know.
Sorry about that.
The creeper. Uh,
He's one of the Mr. Main. He's called the Creeper.
Creeper behind my screen.
So anyway, we meet Mr. Furious, played by Ben Stiller, the Shoveler, played by William H. Macy, and I'm always forgetting the
The
third.
blue.
The Blue
Blue
Raja,
Raja.
Yeah, Blue
Hank
Raja.
Azaria.
Raja.
And we see very quickly that their powers aren't very well developed, or they don't actually have any powers.
And they're terrible at
And
any
they're
of it.
terrible. Like Hank Azaria is trying to throw spoons, as one
Yeah.
does as a Raja, I guess. And Ben Stiller is getting angrier and angrier, not doing
Nothing's happening.
Nothing is happening. And William H. Macy valiantly with his shovel, but quickly disarmed. So while they're struggling, in walks Captain Awesome. And
Captain
this,
Amazing.
I know. See, I always get it wrong. My mind is a fuzzy thing. Captain Amazing, correct.
Mhm.
And
Well, he flies in on his like super boots or whatever they are.
They're
right.
like jetpack or whatever. Yeah,
Jetpack
something
boots,
like that,
And
yeah.
again, ahead of his time, emblazoned with logos for ST.
Oh, yeah.
I love that it was all like,
Yeah.
Penske, STP, all these
Yeah,
like
it was like a race
McDonald's.
car. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
great. It was like a race car.
And he's straight out of The Boys. I mean,
It's 100%
Yeah.
the boys.
Yeah.
yeah.
He
100
is a
Or well, the
dick.
boys 100% this. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
exactly.
not as dickish as like the boys are, but he's definitely like you established right away that he's kind of a dick. He like kind of moves the kid out of the way, shoves the grandpa in the wheelchair out of the way.
Yeah, he's not
he's
he's
there
not
for
a
the money and the
superhero to
fame.
help people. He's
No,
a
he's there for the-
superhero for the fame.
Right.
Fame and the money. Yeah, it's
And-
Greg Kinnear playing Greg.
Greg,
yeah,
yes, perfect casting.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
as the douchey white man.
Yeah.
And accompanied by Ricky Jay,
Yeah.
great magician. Just another one of these really cool cameos of like great people. And we quickly see that Captain Amazing is rescuing people. It's so easy for him. He's in it for the fame. And but then after, and he vanquishes the Red Gang and gets into his limo with
But you're missing my favorite part is
Uh,
the second it's done, that's where he comes in. It's his like publicist manager, like, all right, next. Like it's
Yeah.
like pure Hollywood and making a
Yeah.
joke that the second it's done, swoops in, like without it missing a beat. You've got
Right.
your
Yeah.
publicist manager there, like
Yep.
ushering you to the car, dealing with the press, putting you on the next project.
Yeah.
Like it's so gross and I love it.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
It's great. And then Captain Amazing is complaining because he doesn't have any tasks. And, like this was, an old folks home. I mean, is this really the best use of his talents? And, Ricky Jay is like, well, we already got rid of so-and-so. We already fought. And,
All the big names.
all the big
you've
names.
taken out.
And Casanova Frankenstein
What a
is.
great name.
Well,
What
that's a
great
Bob
villain
Burden.
name.
The
That is a-
best villain name. in
Great
a long
villain name.
time.
That
Casanova
is
Frankenstein.
from the comics. Like a lot
Yeah.
of the names that you find the
Mhm.
funniest are definitely Bob Burden
Yeah.
inventions. And the Disco Boys are from
Yeah.
Bob Burden also. And
That's
because
great.
that guy, he's an incredible imagination. And
Mm.
apparently he hated this movie, but oh
Mm.
well. As
Ladies and gentlemen, line one, Bob Burden. Bob,
Yeah.
hey, tell us what you think.
yeah, but and then the great line, where Captain Amazing is frustrated and Ricky Jay says, "I'm a publicist, not a magician." So
Yeah.
But of course, in the know, people know
yeah,
that he
Yeah.
was a magician, actually, in real life. Yeah, so it's great. There's all these little inside jokes. It's really awesome.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah, so they talk about what do we do, and then Amazing comes with an idea of how to bring back one of his arch enemies, so they could drum up more PR and be the hero again.
And then we meet Jeffrey Rush as Casanova Frankenstein at his parole hearing at the
Who's that?
insane
It's sort of an
asylum.
Arkham Asylum,
Arkham.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
he's
Lena Owen playing the doctor who's
Yeah.
obviously sleeping with him and saying he's
Or in her
cured.
glasses, in her 90s glasses.
Yeah.
Oh,
She
It's
gets her 2
fabulous.
lines in and then decides to never speak again, or they
yeah.
give her no
Well,
more lines, which is bullshit.
no, the girl, the
Bullshit.
sidekick's girl is often
Yeah.
not gets the fewest lines. Miss Tessmacher aside,
Tessmacher.
yeah. Um, so we see that Captain Amazing is our big jerk, and he gets
He comes in his civilian identity
his
as
yes.
Lance
His
with his
glasses.
glasses on. So
Oh, which by the way is one of the best gags in the whole
It
movie.
Yeah.
it will never get old
It
ever.
won't. And
Ever.
Yeah.
because just like the comedic timing
hmm
of this cast, like
Yeah.
it sounds like I wasn't able to find too much background information about this, Jimmy. So I'm glad you were able to find a
Oh,
little
I got
bit
a lot.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
So I
Got a
mean, I
bunch.
guess I didn't have the sleuthing, but it sounds like it wasn't the best shoot. Maybe there was some problems.
Apparently, Stiller and Kinnear got into a pretty heated argument one time on set, and
Mhm.
and Stiller almost and like asked to be let go. At one was going to ask to be let go, but I guess they worked it out. But yeah,
Oh,
there was definitely some. And obviously, Kinka wasn't having a good time,
yeah.
doing. And he sort of let it run free. Like I said, he let them. Either it was part, oh, I trust these guys, they're comedians and professional, or he just like, I don't fucking know what to do. So he let them like change lines, improv, the tone of the characters, create the tone of the characters, whatever.
Probably could have
Yeah.
used more editing. I think that
Oh,
I think
definitely could use more editing.
yeah,
Like
I
I said,
think
it's too
this
long.
is
It's too long.
yeah. But I was gonna say that would explain just why everybody's like bits are
hmm
just, it's like watching it is kind of like watching sketch comedy. Like
hmm
everybody's just so on
Yeah.
and so their reactions. So the gag that we're talking about is that Mr. Furious can see that Captain Amazing is rich industrious Lance, who I'm not
Yeah.
sure we even learn his last name, and then the
Yeah.
other two, the Blue Raja.
What are you talking about?
What?
Yeah.
No, you keep saying that, but it's not
He-
Well,
true.
that's what William H. Macy says. He goes, no, Lance has glasses.
Yeah.
Captain Amazing does not have glasses. And that's the joke. Like, oh my
And
God.
Vin's
Yeah.
like, well, he would take them off. He's like, well, then he couldn't see.
Then he couldn't
I
It's
know,
like-
but it's like, are you on
Right.
about that again? I mean, it's just like I love the fact
Yeah.
that this ongoing
Yeah.
argument that they have because we see them sitting in a diner again. The '90s thing, right? Like, remember? I guess it's just
Oh
when
yeah.
you're young, you sit in the diner.
Sure.
Like so many great diner
Well,
seasons.
also
in the 90s.
Seinfeld,
Yeah,
definitely. I
Seinfeld.
think there was
Uh,
even a Seinfeld-looking character in the background.
yeah,
Not
but right.
Seinfeld, but I can't remember which one. But I think it was, yeah.
Pulp Fiction, diner
Yeah.
scenes,
Yeah.
like every Quentin Tarantino movie, David Lynch
Yeah.
movie, diner scenes.
That's one of the things that during this pandemic, I actually realized I miss is a diner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
there you go.
of just sitting and having like a kind of crappy cup of coffee
Good old
and getting
Westway Diner,
and a
9th
menu with
Avenue.
1,000 items on it.
Yeah.
Like
I remember when we did surprise. We're going off topic. During New York Comic Con years ago, Joe and I used to like host other podcasters. Like, hey, come here, and we were really good friends with the owners of the Renaissance Diner on 9th Avenue, the old school
rest
one.
in peace, Renaissance.
Yeah, I know Renaissance. It closed before the pandemic, but still, it was
I
like
know.
But somebody I guess had never. They were from some small town visiting, and on like forums we have, we're like, I've never seen a restaurant with so many items to choose from. And I was like, it's a diner. Do you not have a diner in your town? Like, yeah, then I guess he didn't. He'd never been in a diner.
I grew up in
life.
Indiana,
I
and
know.
we had Greek
Yeah.
diner
Yeah.
restaurants where the menus were 1,000 pages long.
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
Every church group and choir and theater
Diner
group were
cooks
there.
do not
It's
get enough props because they have to know 5,000 dishes.
Well, I have just as long as we're talking about diners, which seems appropriate for this movie, actually. So here where I live in Kips Bay, I had the worst diner, the Sunflower
Oh.
Diner. Now, some people say they liked it, but I'm telling you, it was a shit diner. And like
Uh,
one time I was at home and I was like, I would like some ravioli. And I'm like, I will go to the diner and order ravioli. Now that seems like probably it wasn't the best idea, but still in New York, if you want
I've
something
had some great diner food. I'll tell you what.
right, okay.
Absolutely.
So I went and I ordered it and they're like, yeah, okay. And then I'm sitting and I'm waiting. And I saw one of the waiters run out and go to the grocery store, come back
They were out.
with ravioli. So
Yeah.
out. I don't think they ever had any, Erin.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they
Makes sense.
yeah. So and I was like, oh, do not return to the Sunflower Diner. So
Right. Well, speaking of food, so Lance comes in to because he wants to give it's a parole hearing for Casanova yet again, and he's going to get denied. But then Lance comes in with his plan to free him so he can fight him again, and he reads from what is supposed to be this letter from Captain Amazing, and
So
it's his
funny.
grocery list, and I'm like, that is my grocery list. It is bread, milk, apples, oranges, pears, pie crust, cookies, soda, grape jelly, ketchup, crackers, and chips. I'm like, wow, was that? Did they
Yeah,
steal my grocery list? I'm like,
yeah,
that's pretty a little too much fruit for me, but still,
Pretty
it's
great.
like I was like, that's pretty close to a lot of stuff what I every week. So yeah,
yeah.
that was pretty cool.
So while this plan is brewing, we learn more about our still unnamed team, and and Mr. Furious is a little frustrated. Like, why is the Blue Raja called the Blue Raja when he doesn't have anything blue? And
Yeah,
like Hank Azaria,
That felt like an improv line, like a
oh
gag.
yeah,
yeah, but he is playing this affected British fop, and yet he's called the Raja. Now, of course, given Hank Azaria's history with the poo and everything, well, what I went into this is, oh man, I hope he's not playing a South Asian character, but it is.
yeah.
He's playing the Raj. I think he is. I think they're taking a bit of the snark at colonialism with this character. So
Oh,
I
because he even has a little speech about it. Well, you see, when England was with India, all that stuff, he does that little thing
Yeah.
about it. Tries to explain it. He does do a little bit of Simpsons character at one point, like because we do get a little scenes at their homes, like we see the shovel at home with his wife and kids, and when we learn that Raj is that's not his real accent,
yes, his
because
mother
he
is played
lives
by
with his
Louise Lasser, by the way.
lives with his mom, and after he's like, "Mom, I'm told you not to not, yeah, no," gets kicks him out. Then he sits down at a fork, and what does he say? Claven, which is his character from Simpsons, the professor guy.
Yeah.
So he threw that in a little bit.
But
That was
his
pretty cool.
English mannerisms are like because Mr. Furious gets mad at the waitress who
Claire
uh
Forlani,
yeah,
Monica,
Claire
yeah, Claire
Forlani,
Monica.
beautiful 90s
Yeah,
90s
God,
indie
ooh,
girl.
Oh yeah.
uh
love me some
and
Claire.
Hagazara is a say fellow, I feel you're a bit strident with her.
That's great. Yeah, his language is
Oh, it's good.
brilliant.
I
It's
can't believe I
brilliant.
don't remember this movie
Yeah,
because
Yeah.
it's hitting me now right in my
yeah,
breadbasket.
yeah. It's like yeah, the language she uses is so brilliant because it's just all these like just stereotypes of British, words and like that. It's just the way like phrasing and things
Oh,
like
it's
that
yeah,
that a real British person wouldn't use. It's
yeah, it's
like
like,
which is
Just
so
it's
makes it
too
so fun.
flowery.
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
just so makes it so funny.
It's great.
I
Uh,
do have to say that he is correct though at the end. The three-way check split. The salad guy always pays more for the steak guy. So true.
mhm.
Always.
So true.
That's another thing about diners.
Yep.
That's what
Yep.
you walk out and they're fighting over the three-way bill.
Yeah.
And
We
then
always had one of those in our group there where they were like, "I'll get the $80 steak," and like others, I'm
two
like,
cocktails,
you got
two,
$100 in food.
Yeah,
Grey
you're
You
like
Goose
could pay a little
martinis.
more.
you're like, I had a tea and a cup of soup. Could we
Yeah.
not? Like
Because I always think I'm the one that has the expensive taste. So if I get, I'm like, oh no, I always say no, I'll pay more because I got more
yeah.
expensive stuff. And my friends are, like, oh okay, and
Yeah.
yeah, I
So
feel
we
like
learn a
it's
little
like,
bit more about the shoveler, also his home life, like he's an ordinary guy, in an interracial relationship.
Well, Jennifer Lewis, one of my absolute favorite actresses
yeah,
in the world.
and she
I
is not having it.
underutilized. She is not having her husband leaving every night to be a fake superhero. Like
Yeah.
that is not.
And this was a great
They have a cute little pink house.
relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Yeah.
think, it's another 90s thing, I
Mhm.
think, to have this be an interracial
I
relationship.
thought it was a strange intro.
Not
He goes into the house and they focus on the picture of him and his family, and then we immediately meet the family. Like we wouldn't know that was his family if they didn't show that picture.
guess
Maybe.
they were bracing us,
That
this
was
is
I
no
just thought it was a weird
Superman.
choice, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, well, they were bracing us for this idea. But I thought
Interracial. Oh my god, it's
uh,
so different and weird. But yeah,
yeah. But then it's treated just,
yeah, it's
completely
treated
normally.
normally for
Yeah,
sure. That's why I thought it was such a
yeah.
strange choice to have that picture show.
Um
But anyway,
well, it's
sorry.
not like Spider-Man Homecoming.
Mm,
you
you mean the
know,
best Spider-Man film ever? No.
Yes, well, I'm just saying, when they introduced that relationship in the
Yeah,
movie, it was
yeah.
I said I was at a screening and I never heard so many people gasp, like hardened entertainment reporters
Ugh,
gasp. at
God.
that moment. So, but anyway, back to
Suck.
Mystery Men. You see, we
Yes.
keep straying away from
It's all
Mystery
right.
Men,
But one of
which
us will
is
pull us back in.
one of
Always
us will pull us
happens.
back in. But I think that's
Oh, we
just
skipped over Disco Boys. We get introduced
oh
briefly to the Disco Boys.
yes.
Of course,
Yes,
as
because
you
now
mentioned,
Casanova
Eddie
Love.
Frankenstein is back in his his
Lair.
gang in his lair, which he's got a supervillain's gigantic
Yeah.
castle lair, and his henchmen are the Disco Boys,
And
played
it's Eddie Izzard and, as you said, Proswell from the Fugees.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Badass clothes, badass guns, badass
Look great.
hair, full
Yeah.
package.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and also the
I
music.
mean, I don't know about the full package. We didn't see that, but
No,
whatever.
I'm just saying.
I know, just kidding.
But the music cues in here are great too. Like every
Yeah.
time when what do we meet the Disco Boys with?
Mhm.
Well, of course, Saturday Night Fever
Mhm.
soundtrack plays throughout. I just because I'll forget, but they have a big fight
Yeah.
scene at the end where they play a fifth of Beethoven, which was the big fight scene song in Saturday Night Fever.
Yep.
References it. So I mean,
A lot of clever,
there's
moments in here for
there's
sure.
so
Yeah.
many good things in this
Yeah.
movie. Um, so yeah, so we see the frustration of these unnamed mystery men, and they want to do better than Captain Amazing.
Yeah.
They realize that he's their competition, and
Step up their
they need
game.
to step up their game. So
We
so
see how
they
bad Stiller's game is because he's tries to hit on Claire Forlani's character Monica, and that doesn't do very well.
yeah, she is
Terrible.
not.
How does she fall for him? Though we'll get to that anyway.
Yeah. By the way, I have to say, like, they're wearing their superhero Joel Schumacher getup behind me. But
Yeah.
if there was one thing this movie needed to be, Oscar nominated for, it was the costumes.
Yeah. Yeah, they're
Like,
great.
They're
Absolutely.
very
they're
clever.
so
Yeah.
clever. Like the shoveler has this jacket.
Catcher's vest on. It's like
Yeah, with
for
these
sure.
giant grommets and just
Mhm.
Ben Stiller in his biker gear. Just every
Yeah.
costume is so like iconic and well thought
Yeah.
out. And so anyway, I
Yeah.
just couldn't stop staring at the costumes in this movie and the shoes. Oh, the 90s
Yeah.
shoes. Those are the days. It's
Right.
I
like,
miss my Delia's, Mary Jane's platforms,
You can still
90s
wear them,
style.
whatever. It's all good.
yeah, Delia's. So
Um,
so in an effort to, they see that our heroes see that Casanova Frankenstein is back, and so they decide to stake out his castle.
well,
And
just furious.
yes,
Does.
just Mr. Furious, right.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that, Captain Amazing is now off to, vanquish Casanova Frankenstein and,
Oh, because he blew up the Arkham Asylum type place. Yeah.
yes. But guess what? Casanova is loaded for bear this time,
Mhm.
and he captures Captain Amazing.
Yeah. How did Captain Amazing beat him all these times? It's like he seems really dumb. like he's like, okay, turn off your laser, your finger
It was
laser,
ego.
turn off
It's
your
all
toe,
ego.
this and that. So he knew, but then he suddenly just picks up some random thing and goes, huh? I'm like, you idiot.
It was just
Yeah.
ego. All of it was
Yeah.
ego.
Yeah.
Like he
yeah.
let himself go because he thinks he's so amazing.
Yeah, and he probably maybe to be fair, he'd been out of practice fighting a real supervillain for a while, so maybe that's
True.
it. That's fine.
Yeah, there you go.
Um,
He just,
there you
wasn't
go.
up. Yeah, wasn't. And Casanova Frankenstein had definitely upped his game,
Yeah, absolutely. He had all
So
those years to think for sure. Yeah.
that's they said that. They said, where did he get these weapons? And it's like, well, everyone who could have thought of these weapons is in a, been put in an insane asylum. And then they're like, where Casanova Frankenstein spent the last
There you
20
go.
years. So
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
was it. He did up his game. So
Yeah.
Mr. Furious is like, okay, but, he realizes that Captain Amazing's been captured. So we got it. Now is really their chance to shine, really their chance to, become actual heroes. And I guess, there's a lot of like planning, and then they go sit in the diner and talk
Yeah.
about it. And which is just like real life in the 90s. And then they do something else and they go back to the diner and talk about it. So it loses a bit of
Dude.
momentum in
Yeah,
this.
there's a lot of diner stuff.
Yeah.
There is a great. I do got to say we find out Roy's real job. He works at a junkyard. His boss
Oh,
is
that
the
was
best.
another
Junket.
Junket.
She's
Yeah.
so
You
great.
say junket one more time to me.
Yeah.
So great. But then there's just too many diner scenes. They go back to the diner he's like, I think Amazing's been captured because we haven't heard from him and he's missing and I saw him go there. But that's what also has a very old school, besides Batman movie, but very Batman TV show feel to it, where like the villain captures the good guy and just holds on to him for a while. Like he's just like not gonna do anything yet. Like he wasn't even originally planning to really kill him at first. Just kind
Right.
of like,
It's like,
just gonna hang out and hold on to him, But like
Yeah,
those old
yeah.
Batman comic book
yeah.
covers.
So after a few more scenes of the diner and more development of the Ben Stiller Claire Filani relationship, they decide they need to have reinforcements,
Being
and
that
we
awful misogynistic attitude he had towards Claire Forlani's character.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And for some reason, she's not
Yeah,
digging.
she wants me, and I'll just keep trying, no matter
Yeah,
how much she disses me. I'm like, okay, 90s.
they're
Yeah.
very, very. Although, by the way, a movie that references this kind of plot development is Baby Driver, a modern
Never seen
movie.
it. Never seen it.
Really? I
Oh.
mean, I saw
Oh,
it, but
I
I
the
don't
know of it.
remember.
no, the girl, but I mean, baby goes to the diner and is in love with the waitress.
Okay. I
Okay.
mean, that seems to
Oh,
be a lot of movies, I bet, though.
yeah, I
I think
know,
a
but
lot of like falls for the,
yeah,
falls for the waitress
it's a
thing. Yeah.
100% trope. I gotta go
Yeah.
look it up, but
Yeah.
that like this where the hero goes to the
Hmm.
diner and falls in love with a waitress is absolutely like this trope. But Baby Driver has it, and like, well, you haven't seen it, Jimmy, but let's just say
Yeah.
this is my biggest problem with Baby Driver is this relationship, and I'll
Okay.
leave it at that.
All right.
So,
All right.
anyway, so we meet the rest of the team, and I guess the first is this. No, they're sitting in the diner, and then it has again a great music sting. Planet Claire by the B-52s, one of my
Mhm.
all-time favorite songs, and we meet Paul Rubens
The
as the
spleen.
spleen, and he's just gross and
So good.
disgusting.
Disgusting and
Oh,
So
fantastic.
he's
good. Oh God, he's so good.
and
Well, he's doing my favorite voice. Like friends of mine, that was our funny voice to each other. We're talking like this.
mhm,
We're talking like, "What's going on, guys?"
yeah,
Like that whole like,
I love it. I
like you have
love
a
it.
little braced face. Hey
Yeah.
yeah,
guys, what you doing?
yeah, and we
It's
learn,
funny every time I hear it.
Yes, it is.
and he's
Do the
covered
rest of the podcast like that, please.
Just
horrible
like this.
pimples and greasy hair, and again, great shoes
Oh,
that
his
he's wearing.
teeth are
Oh,
disgusting. They're all
Yeah,
rotty.
and we learned
it's
that his
great.
superpower, and I can't believe I didn't remember this because farting superheroes is one of my favorite things. That
Fine.
he has the power to release,
Not normally mine, but yeah, all right.
fart
But
bombs
he's great here. Yeah,
and but somebody has to pull his finger to do it. So, and
so great.
I felt like of all of them, he had the actual best power because he
Yeah, he can
knocked
knock
out
people out. Yeah,
knock people out with his stink bombs. But and
yeah.
that's again the costume. He's wearing this the kind of patchy coat that you find in the thrift
Mhm.
store. Oh,
It's like
so
like the Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. See, we're always gonna make it a musical. It's always
Always.
gonna be
yeah,
a musical.
yeah.
Always.
But
I
the
look
the
handsome. I look smart.
the comedy level just ratchets up
Yeah.
with this. And then now how do they meet the invisible boy though? Because they didn't meet him at the I think somebody says that they know
Oh,
of him.
they heard of
They heard of him.
him.
Yeah.
Who said it? Is it?
I thought it was
Does
spleen.
it? Yeah, I think Spleen says it.
Spleen, that's
Yeah,
right. The spleen
he'd
says
heard
let's
of
go.
him.
So and this is Kel
Yeah.
Mitchell from Key
Yeah.
Kel, yet another.
And one of my favorite jokes in the whole
Yes. Yes. Say it.
movie is, "Hey Dad,
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to my room with three strange men."
Yeah.
Right?
And Dad just keeps reading the
Not
paper or
even
whatever.
phased. And that's a 80s 90s parent.
Yeah.
It's just
Oh,
That's so
like,
great.
I don't care where you are, what you're doing, leave me alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. And
So they go back to the diner yet again
Rest, they go
with
back to
Invisible
the
Boy and
diner.
talk to him about and of course his powers. And this apparently Bob, the creator, Bob
Bob
Burton,
Burton.
was at some Hollywood party drunk and came up with the idea for this
Mm-hmm.
character. And the producer's like, yes, that's great. He's invisible, but only when other people look away and don't see him. So that's apparently had the origin of it. But yeah, so they go back to the diner and they're hanging out, and Invisible Boy's like, well, I go to all the like costume shops and kung fu stores. So I like network. I know people.
Yeah.
So then they come with the idea of like, let's have auditions, and that's the scene that I really stuck with me.
And they have it at the shoveler's
Yeah.
house because he has
Yeah.
a pool, and his
Yeah.
wife is not
No,
on. She
she ain't
says, if
have.
anybody pukes in my pool, I
Yeah,
am
she
Well,
leaving.
they
ain't
were
having
supposed
it.
to have a nice barbecue, and then all these like weirdos show up in costumes. She's like, "What the hell is happening here?"
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think somebody was on Twitter. I was talking about this movie on Twitter, and they're like, why couldn't the flaming carrot have showed up in this scene? I think they didn't want to have flaming carrot in this movie because they were hoping to have a flaming carrot show or something like that separately, so they didn't want to cross
There
the
is a reference to him. There is a sign in the background when later on when Furious is walking Monica home. where it says something like "flaming carrot" for
Ah,
some sort of
okay.
store. So
But I think
that's all you get. Yeah,
probably,
that's all
I'm
you get. Yeah,
guessing, I'm just
yeah,
purely guessing that they didn't want to have him in there because they had the rights tied up somewhere else,
hmm
probably.
yeah,
But yeah, they have this scene, and again, cameos out the yin yang, Doug Jones, Dane
oh
Cook,
yeah.
I think Kinka Usher is in it. I mean,
I
just,
think Dana Gould is in
yeah.
this
Oh yeah,
too.
Dana
Yeah,
Gould is
yeah,
in it as well. So
yeah.
just like everybody who was hanging out in, Hollywood, the comedy scene in the 90s and late 1998 is in this scene.
Yeah, so it's
Uh
great. Well, before that, like Invisible Boy's going through a list of heroes
mhm.
that are, and then you see another list of lame heroes. But one of the best ones, Lucky Pierre and the French Tickler. It's
The
like,
French
it's so
tickler.
great. It's Lucky Pierre. It's so great.
It does
Um,
fire the imagination.
yeah,
But then after, none of them are any good. And then just as it
I
ends,
actually think Ballerina Man could have been useful because he
I
was
think
big and strong and could
I
move
think
really
that
well.
was
Yeah.
He could have probably been a really good fighter. I bet.
well, in the Mystery Men comics, the team is a lot different and a lot,
Yeah,
as I said, Bob just has index cards with names of characters on it, and
yeah,
he can just shuffle them together at the moment's notice. So,
yeah.
um,
It-
but but finally, our final and really best member of our team,
well,
Janine Garofalo.
Here she
thankfully, because
comes.
right before that, we get a couple of those 90s misogynistic moments like, oh, girl fight, the two Wonder Woman characters have to
Yes.
fight. Oh, PMS Avenger, ha ha ha. She
Yeah,
every,
it was
it's like,
very
okay, calm
bad. It
down.
was very
But then
bad
luckily, Janine comes in to sort of try to right that wrong.
with the as the
Uh,
I hope if
bowler.
just
there's ever
looking
a
dope as
re-editing,
hell. God.
yeah, if there's ever a re-editing of this movie for
Mhm.
like time,
Yeah.
that those little moments can go.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. There's
Yeah, and
full on scenes that can be cut. Yeah.
it's a product of its time, but female superhero movies,
Yeah.
they had tried a couple and they were big old flops. So it really, also
Mhm.
this was the heyday of the Lads magazine.
Mhm.
Like this is
Oh
Bad
yeah.
Girl comics, all that. So yeah, it's more surprising that, we get such a great character in the bowler.
Oh, she looks
Um,
so bad as she walks in. I'm like,
oh,
oh,
her
heart,
shoes,
I
her
mean,
oh,
just
I
take
love
me
her so
back. Oh,
much. Her
everything.
like eyeliner. I'm like, oh, she looks badass and dope as hell. I love her.
And then she pulls out a bowling ball with a skull embedded in it,
Yeah.
and it just, crashes through. And we
Which the
really,
skull is her dad's skull, the skull of her dead father, who was the original bowler. So
right.
he sort of is a ghost inside this bowling
And
ball
she's talking
that she
to it.
talks to. Those
Right.
scenes, most of those were improvised. I bet
Oh,
of her just
100%.
talking to the bowling ball. Oh,
her
so
fighting with
great.
her father,
Yeah.
her
Oh
skull of her
God.
father is genius.
So good.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And
It's great.
I think they probably start off as an improv thing too. They used it later with her and Ben. Why don't you tell me? Why don't you tell me? Why don't you tell me? And I guarantee you that was probably just
Oh, it
something
had to
they
be. It had
riffed
to be.
and they're like, that works. Let's use it again.
Yeah.
And it's
Well,
like so good.
which is funny because I mean, didn't they
It
date in
is.
real life?
And then they were like best friends for a while. I don't know if they ever
Yeah,
actually dated.
maybe
They
they
may
tried,
have.
but you
They
know,
certainly worked together a lot.
yeah,
They
Yeah.
worked
both got
together.
their start in Reality Bites because he
Yeah.
wrote it and directed it.
And
That's
then
right.
also you forget his not very well remembered, but it was pretty good sketch
TV
show.
the
Yeah.
sketch show. Oh my
Yeah, it
God.
was great.
Ben Stiller show.
Yeah.
So funny.
It
Oh
was
my God,
great.
it was so
I used
funny.
to have that on DVD too.
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. No,
Um,
Ben Stiller's a comedy demigod as far as I'm
yes,
concerned.
it's great.
But I mean, in their squabbling, obviously Ben Stiller and Janine Garofalo have insane chemistry, and like you
Mhm.
see this,
Yeah,
you know,
they play up
like
each other so
like
well.
romance developing. Like you think it's going to be a romance between the two of them,
Yeah,
and then it doesn't go
which
anywhere.
is a very '90s trope, which I think would
Yeah.
have for the time would have worked better than his relationship with the waitress. So
Yeah.
they could have cut her character completely. Is my opinion.
Yeah,
Like,
but I
they
mean,
didn't
it's
need it.
also
Yeah.
good that they, like one female superhero doesn't always have to
Right,
kill the guy.
exactly.
So
They didn't have to. So
just be
that that I
friends.
appreciate. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Was it here they did it? I can't remember what part it was, but they do a big sort of subtle reference to William Shatner, the whole
Oh, right,
sabotage
they're
thing.
walking out and saying
It's so great, so great. And then
another
like even
90s thing, man.
yeah, because if you don't know Aaron, there's a whole thing where William Shatner. There's several voice recordings of him being a dick to people. But there's one.
I know those. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's one where he's recording, I think for a Star Trek video game, Heidi, was it? And he kept saying sabotage instead of sabotage. And even I think in the Star Trek show he did it. And I think there's some quote where he's like, well, that's how I say it.
When he says, you say sabotage, I say sabotage.
Yeah.
That's just how I say it.
And he does say it.
Okay.
and then they say the line later, which Ben Stiller says. He says this to the producer. Don't tell me how to act. It sickens me. And you hear Ben Stiller later saying, "Don't tell me how to whatever. It sickens me." It's
Okay,
so
that's
great. It's so great.
that's
What
the
a
thing about
dig.
this movie.
Little
There's so
deep
many little
digs.
details.
Yeah,
Yeah,
love it.
yeah,
Love it.
yeah. I mean, I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna watch it again. I definitely need to watch it
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
And
It was,
you
I
know,
watched it twice, and then
yeah, I
my
watched.
rental's up, so
I know
Yeah.
I,
I
I
probably
have
won't go
another day,
back.
so
But yeah,
maybe I'll,
yeah,
I'll revisit it before then.
yeah,
But yeah, it's just bursting with these details, and
yeah.
again, it's a little self-indulgent, but and I think, well, we'll wrap after we go through it. We'll wrap up the flaws of Mystery Men and
Yeah.
what it was that didn't quite. So they tried to take on the Disco Boys. I think as I'm saying this, I'm realizing what you were saying before, and they're completely about to be blown away by the Disco Boys,
Mhm.
who are heavily armed and have guns, and then suddenly some mysterious force comes and just shears off their guns. And he had been spoken of before as the actual real
Mhm.
superhero,
Yeah.
the Sphinx.
Yes.
Mhm.
And we see Wes Studi as the Sphinx right
Oh.
over my left shoulder there.
Yep.
And great role for Wes Studi, obviously, great Native American actor. And so I will train you. He's come in as
His
the
his philosophical remarks
oh
are like it works for Ben Stiller's character to call him out on it, right? Because he's like, "This is ridiculous. You're just saying this. I know what you're gonna say next," and they're so funny because he
but
delivers them so sincerely.
yeah, he keeps saying this thing,
Ugh.
if you buy your groceries, then your groceries
Groceries
will
will
own
buy
you.
you. Yeah,
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then
It's like
and
this.
then so he says, like, if you are, if you let your master anger you, and then Ben Stiller says, you're gonna say, then master will be your anger, or
Yeah,
your anger will be your master.
I
And then he
wasn't
goes,
necessarily going to say that.
But I like where they have Ben Stiller sitting in front of a sewing machine, like they're making
oh,
them
they're
Yeah.
their own
sewing their
costumes.
costume.
And then he's like, what are we gonna do? Sit here all day? Does anyone have a thimble? Like he's like,
It's so great.
Loved it. I loved
So
it.
great.
like it's so quick. He's like angry, but then he's like, I'm gonna finish
Oh,
sewing my project.
there's another quick moment we skipped real quick. I just want to go back to is Paul Rubens when
Oh,
they're after they confront. They
Oh
actually are
yeah.
chasing in a car. They see Casanova and his gang, and they somehow get lucky and trap them in their car. And that's when Ben jumps out and starts going at the car decal thing, and then they're get them. But they go to the bar to celebrate afterwards. In the whole movie, uh Paul Rubens' character, the spleen, is sort of, flirty with Janine, and
oh
she shuts him down every time. So there's this great quick moment where it's almost like he's a Muppet character. You see him sort of like slink over to her, like, and she's like, not a million beers or whatever
No,
she
she,
says
yeah,
like
she
that.
said
She
she
said,
said not enough beer in the
Not
world.
enough beers, yeah, beer. And
Okay, I'm sorry.
he just goes, "Sorry," and slinks
Oh, I
back.
love
It's
that.
so
uh,
such
Yep.
a great moment. It's
because
like the
she's
slinks back
shutting him
just like,
down, but
yeah,
she's
right
still
away.
kind of kind. She's
Yeah,
being
she's kind of
as kind
endeared
as she
to
can.
him.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're also so the part where he's showing off all the oh no, they're not there yet. Sorry, I meant the wrong person.
Sorry.
That's later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So sorry. So back to Sphinx. He's training them and everything. Yeah.
yeah,
Anyway.
and
Continue.
with his and then they're sewing up these new costumes. But then Ben Stiller goes back to the diner, and
Somehow Claire Forlani has fallen in love with him. I don't know
yes,
how.
suddenly
But
she sees the vulnerable side of him.
uh,
And
jeez.
this scene was this part just needed to be cut. As nice as lovable as Claire Filani is.
Yeah.
And he finally gets to walk her back to her place,
Hmm.
and she asks his name, and he's like, won't tell. He gives her all these crazy phony names.
Dirk, Durgy.
Dirk,
What is
Dirk
it?
Dark. Well, it's Dirk Dark. Uh,
Yeah.
And then she says, my name is Roy. And she says, you need to be Roy. And now we have the
Yeah.
third act turn where suddenly after this, Mr. Furious decides that he doesn't want to he's not really a superhero. And just as they're about to go rescue Captain Amazing at Casanova Frankenstein's
I think we
castle.
skipped it. That actually happened before, I think. But anyway, go ahead. Carry on.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
sorry.
because it was when he was frustrated and he left. But it was when she said, Roy, he
Mhm.
really just be Roy. He's like, that's it. I'm done. I'm really done. Um,
But we didn't get to the weapons guy. We
No,
didn't
no.
get
So
to
yeah, we skipped. So what
oh, we
happened was
skipped over.
what happened
Tom
was
Waits.
what was we get to the
Oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
So
I'm like,
before that we go to we go to the castle, whatever you want to
I,
call it,
I'm
and
I'm
all the
internally
gangs have
editing
gathered.
this movie.
No, good. It needs a lot of it. But we meet all the villainous gangs. The not so goody mob, which is of course the real goody mob, which is CeeLo's group, from back in the day. The Furriers, the frat boys, and yes, that is director Michael Bay who says, "Can we bring the brewskis?"
Oh my god, that cracked me up.
Yeah, isn't that great? And the suits. And the suit. Why is the Asian gang called the Susies? I know they have makeup on, but I'm like, I didn't get the reference to that. So is there
No.
anybody any idea why? I don't know why. Um, so the group goes in. They want to rescue Amazing. They end up accidentally killing him because he's tied up to this. So he's locked in this machine with all these things.
But we did. Was this? Yes. Did they go to Dr. Heller before or after
Yes,
that?
sorry. Yes, I
Yeah,
skipped
we
the part,
because
yeah.
we left out how
Keep skipping. Yeah,
in
right,
the
yeah.
first scene, Dr. Heller, Tom Waits,
Mhm.
has handed a business card to the shoveler, and then
Yes.
as after they're trying to do this, he's like, "Wait a minute, what about this?" And then we learn that Tom Waits. This is a whole other scene.
Yeah.
Tom Waits is a mad scientist who lives in an abandoned carnival, like carnival, and which is why the mad scientists always live in abandoned circuses. And he's got all these non-lethal weapons, like a
Yeah.
tornado in a can. That is a total Bob Burton thing.
The
It's really
argument,
honest.
what is that?
Yeah.
The laser beam that starts
Yeah.
fighting and arguments, which again,
Yeah,
is
yeah,
another
yeah.
Paul Rubens
That's great.
Yeah.
and Janine Garofalo scene of them screaming profanities at each other, and then it turns off, and they start apologizing, and he tries to kiss her.
Yeah.
And she's like, nope, shut it down, no.
Well,
Yeah.
so no, because they go to Casanova's castle twice. You go there first, they
That's
accidentally
right.
kill Amazing, then they go back to Tom Waits,
That's right.
and that's when they get all the stuff. And,
So
and
the
that's when
that
they're like, let's
scene-
gear up, let's get all the stuff. And there's a great speech with Shoveler gives this motivational speech. Do you recognize any of that speech where he gives what it might be from?
Is it from Braveheart? No.
I mean, not far off. Shakespeare's Henry V.
Ah,
It really is a take up from this day to the end of the world. We shall be remembered. This is the actual Shakespeare. We few, we happy few, we band of brothers. That's Henry V. And his speech has some similarities to
Yeah.
it. I'm like, that's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
I love the scene when they accidentally killed Captain.
It's
Because
Yeah.
it goes back to classic comedy writing of
Mhm.
it honestly reminded me of Clue, of the argument of 1 + 2 + 1 + 1.
Yeah,
Or that's 1 +
yeah.
1 + 2 + 1. Like they're just arguing, and they're like, that's what reminded me of just classic arguments of just confusion.
Or even who's on first. Yeah,
and
it's really
it
like.
goes back to who's on first. It's
So
just
do we?
so good.
Was it the
but
that one before there's 7 total?
but before
Pull the
that
switch.
is one of the best moments where William H. Macy asks him, "Are you Lance?" And he says,
Oh,
yes.
yes.
And then William Macy is like, I mean, his acting again is just like, you see all like stunned, shocked, like his world is swirling in front of his eyes there. And then he says, "Oh no, I'm just kidding. I'm not." And then he's
Well-
like, "Oh."
Well, before he asked, you see him a couple times doing like with his finger circles, like he's trying to put glasses on him. He's like, is that maybe he's right? And that's brilliant.
Yeah,
That's so great.
it's just a great payoff to that joke, though. And then
So
they
great.
accidentally kill him. So then they go back. See, this movie did need to be cut so much.
Yeah, it's a lot of.
They go back and they get their weapons, and then they come back for the final assault. And we're ready for it. We have all the gangs. We've set up all these great, colorful characters. We have our
There is a little
heroes.
Tom Waits bit. Sorry. During that scene before they head off, you notice Tom always had these weird hand gestures, and if you go back and watch it,
Mhm.
when he's explaining the psychofraculator thing, it was because he couldn't remember his lines. He didn't write them on his fingers, and so he's literally
Wow.
reading, doing this, looking at his lines
It's
as
like
he's
Tom
going
Waits is
along.
my hero. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
So that's apparently what happened.
That's
Anyway,
hilarious.
so they go for the assault. They're headed for the assault.
Yes. And again, we have all these teams for them to overcome. By the way, we learned that Eddie Izzard's character had killed
yes.
Janine Garofalo's father, so she has her
So that
vengeance.
we're ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, before they leave, they do this weird that I had to look up where they're heading off and they gather something. They go, I had to look up what they said. They're like, Sei gesund. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? Did I miss something earlier? It's just some random, it's Yiddish, derived from German, which means be healthy. And it's often used in a toast. And I'm like, that was so just randomly thrown. I thought it was some bigger thing I'd missed earlier. And I'm like, did they say that earlier already? No, it's just something. And I bet you it was probably like Ben Stiller, let's say this, threw it in there. which I thought
Yeah,
was
probably. So
all
it's
right.
gonna sound
Because
like a
it's like a whole camera shot. They see all their faces. They look right down at the camera. It's like, it's like, all right, sure.
So when we have the final assault and everybody gets to have their moment to shine. And like I said, the one thing that I remembered for 22 years out of this movie was Invisible Boy's great moment. Because obviously the joke is that he can only turn invisible when nobody's looking. And we
Mhm.
think it's a bit of a joke like some of the other heroes.
Yeah.
And there turns out there's a laser that when you trip the laser, it immediately disintegrates you
Mhm.
into paste. And they're like, Invisible Boys, like, this is my moment. This
Yeah.
is my time to shine. Everybody turn away.
This is the moment.
And
Love that.
he
They're all like, don't look at him. Don't
don't
look
look.
at him.
And not only does he turn invisible, but his clothes come off when he's
Yeah.
invisible, which I did not get. I guess he's
Well,
insubstantial
that
as
makes
well.
sense. That's an invisible man trope that they have to be like a lot of where they have to like not have clothes
Um,
on, isn't it? Isn't it kind of like a thing? Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess, but they
Yeah.
kind of fell off. But sure,
Yeah, it's
whatever.
true.
It's
Yeah,
Mystery Men.
yeah.
Lampshade moment here. But
Um,
yeah, and that he really can turn invisible when
yeah.
no one is
You
looking.
say, oh, again, we missed something else. Like this freaking movie he's editing. They all go off to say their goodbyes before
Oh,
they, and
right.
this is
That's
when he
right.
walks her home. Home and the whole
Yes,
Roy thing. This
that's
is when
right.
Shoveler goes back and she says, "I'm not going to be here." The wife, and also the best one
The
is when
mom.
Blue Raj, the mom, creepily gets into him doing a British accent. Like, do it again. Like it's like, what, mom? What's
Well, I
that? Like,
think she
do the
thought her
accent.
son was a total loser. He
Yeah,
still lived with
yeah, but
her.
watch it again. The way she looks at him,
I know, it's a
especially on
little
the
Well,
TV.
creepy.
it's
Like,
Louise Lasser, so she
they
can't
say
not
cheerio,
be,
mom. Say cheerio. It's like, okay,
she's innately
yeah,
Mary Hartman, man.
Mary
yeah,
Hartman,
she's
Mary
great.
Oh
Hartman.
She's
my
great.
God. But yes, that's true. There's so many
Yeah,
draggy parts of this
yeah.
movie.
Yeah. So anyway, the
Yeah.
assault happens and they're fighting. They attack the whatever you want to call it they storm the Bastille, and with their giant big
Magnet. They have a big magnet.
non-lethal tank they
Right.
have that was in the junkyard that his boss junk it kept telling her junk it. She's so great. Um, and so they get in that way, and then like
And
Casanova.
then it turns out, yeah, there's the individual battles. Like everybody gets to have their magical moment with their
Yes.
powers. But it turns out that Casanova Frankenstein, being a terrible villain, has kidnapped Monica, the waitress that Mr. Furious is in love with. So now he has a personal motivation to
Yeah.
defeat them.
Yeah.
And Blue Raja uses his powers. Like there's this scene
Yeah.
of Ben Starr trying to climb up the wall, and Blue Raja uses his powers to throw forks into the
The
wall
wall so he can
so that
climb
he's
up.
able to climb, and a big fight ensues. Like Jeffrey Rush has all this jewelry on, and
Yeah, those are
Got
great
a
like
big
he has a
long
rings or
coke
all.
nail.
Yeah.
poison
Yeah, it's a
nail.
big coke nail, yeah.
Yeah, and
Was
we
it
Then he takes
before or
a
after
minute.
that where
But didn't you see
Janine
like he was just about to
fights with
fight him and he
Eddie?
took a second to file it?
Yes, 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 that's great. Yeah. Was that right before when Janine fights
yes, she
Eddie's character?
fights
Yes.
Yeah. So
uh,
she gets her revenge against Eddie Ezra for killing her father.
with
And
a
that's a
bowling
great
ball. And then she
yes.
says, "And now I'm going to grad school,
Going to
just as
grad
we
school.
agreed."
It's so great. And meanwhile, the reason they also had to try to stop this destructive machine that Frankenstein was setting off on this to destroy the city. So that was the whole thing was happening. And meanwhile, him and Casanova are fighting. And I think originally they said Monica had a much bigger role. She was going to help
Oh my God,
save the
bigger role.
day.
Thank God
Yeah,
they
I
cut
know.
that out.
I know. It's the
That'd be
thing. They
so
could have cut her
boring.
completely, but she supposedly was going to be like helping out with them defeat everything. But it was like, yeah, they kind of didn't need her character at all. But yeah, so they basically, he defeats Casanova and they save the day in a sense.
And save the city.
They save the city, and Casanova is definitely dead. He falls down this
Yeah,
reactor shaft, and
yeah,
and there is. I love the moment with the bowling ball because they have to plug up the hole in here, and she's like,
yeah.
"Dad, this is our moment, and
This
it's been
is the
great."
moment.
And throws and the bowling ball with the skull which is just such a great visual, and it
Yeah,
goes down the hole, and the castle is being destroyed, and then finally they're running away, and then finally at the last moment this flaming skull filled bowling ball came shooting out of the castle.
yes,
And for the little final fill up, and then we learn that our heroes are heroes, and there's a
yeah,
reporter waiting to report on everything, and They're heroes. They get a name. They're mystery men, and march off for what might have been planned as a sequel, but never.
Yeah.
Well, I found it funny that she was like, "What's your name?" And then they immediately start fighting and try to come up with like
Yeah.
what their superhero band name is,
Yeah,
which
because
is
the
funny.
boys like, we're the what do they
Yeah,
say? Like the super squad or something like that. He's like, we're
it goes
not
right back to
that.
the
We're
comedy. They're
super
like,
dudes. Because
"No."
no, we're not the super dudes. We're not the super dudes. We're not the. We're not. We're definitely not super dudes. Um, yeah, that's really good. Uh, but yeah, it just sort of ends, and it's like
And
it was
then
very funny.
All Star by Smash Mouth
Yes, like
plays,
Yep.
oh,
which was
very
introduced
90s. Yes.
in this. Actually, it was, this was the
Yeah.
debut of that
Yeah.
song.
Mhm.
Even though it's a big hit, they as soon as they
Yeah.
put it out, it was a huge, huge, huge hit. But yeah, like it, and then 1999, Y2K, the 90s ended in
Y2K.
that
Yeah.
moment. Okay,
Remember
the
that
moment
shit?
All Star came on, the 90s were put to
No,
bed.
that was done. Yeah, it's like you know what? It was very had a lot of very funny moments. It needed it. It could have lost 30 minutes.
You know
And
what I'm
that's why it didn't do well for many reasons. We said it went up against too many big films. It was too long, needed some editing. It could have been a big hit had
I
it been,
think, but I think, Erin mentioned Galaxy Quest, and
Yes.
kind of a similar movie, but everybody loves Galaxy Quest.
Oh,
Everybody quotes Galaxy Quest,
so
references
good.
Now, and Erin says she doesn't,
It's a tighter movie.
but in
By
our
Grass
world, it's
Stars
tighter.
Hammer.
And here's what I think. Now that we've actually discussed it, I think I've actually decided what the problem is. I think the problem is that you had a first time director who
Hmm.
did not know how to shape the material because he was used to doing commercials, and
Didn't
every
know how to
single
rein
thing
in his
didn't know how to
actors.
rein in his cast, didn't know how to shape it. And every single thing we've talked about that we really liked is about the length of a commercial. And it's like we had
Yeah,
such a
fair
hard
enough.
time. I mean, I just watched it last night. I had
Didn't
such a
connect a lot. Yeah.
hard time remembering what happened in which order because the
Yeah.
plot wasn't very tight. And if you'd had, if Ben Stiller had directed this movie, I think it would be a comedy
Yeah.
classic
Or
that
even
people,
DeVito, who originally was
yeah, or
signed on
Danny
to it.
DeVito,
Yeah.
if an experienced comedy director
Hmm.
had done this movie, they could have let the improv roll, but controlled it, and used it like, you know, just shaped the material. This
Yeah.
movie is shapeless.
Yeah. For
And
like a
that's
director that he gets $68 million, which again in '99 is huge for a
mhm.
movie about the characters no one's heard of.
But one thing I do like about this movie, though, it reminds me of Kung Fu Hustle, and that every character has a little backstory. And
Mhm.
obviously, Kung Fu Hustle is directed by the great, great Stephen Chow,
Mhm.
and everything wraps up very quickly.
Yeah.
And like, it could have used Stephen if Stephen Chow had directed this
Oh,
movie.
action would
Yeah,
have been a lot better
yeah.
too.
But Aaron,
Yeah.
you've watched it many times, and
Yes.
yeah, what do is it the heart? Is it the
Maybe it's just nostalgic more than like I don't think it's a perfect film or anything. I think it kind of goes down that like cult film uh
Mhm.
aisle of like there's certain things that I like it and I don't know why. Like there's certain
right?
jokes that will stick with me. Like I like the 90s fashion and the soundtrack. I love Janine Garofalo too much so that I can't like get, I can't shake it. So it's one of those things that if it's on, I'm gonna have it on.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm probably not gonna go out of my way to put it on, like if
Mhm.
it's playing, but if it's like if I'm scrolling around and it's on, I'm like, oh well that's what I'm doing now because it's
Mhm.
fun.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's way too long.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, Galaxy Quest was 102 minutes. This was just over 2 hours by like a couple minutes. So yeah,
There,
it could have
yeah,
lost.
Galaxy Quest. There's not like a dead minute. All the
No.
Yeah.
fats trimmed. It's
Yeah.
perfect from beginning to
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
That's
I think the other question we want to ask, since we've themed it, why do we consider this a movie ahead of its time? And I've got a couple ideas why. It's probably the first big film with a big budget that has a superhero team. I mean, look what's
Yes.
happening nowadays, Avengers,
yeah,
Mhm.
everything. So it's the first we're like, oh, it's not just one character or two characters. You get this whole team. So that's definitely ahead of its time, like that, the way it's done. Um, and that might be it. I don't know.
no, but you're
I'm
right.
sure
It
there's
feels like
other,
a
yeah,
little
yeah.
like I mean, look at like the Umbrella Academy,
Yeah.
and everyone has their story, everyone has
Hmm.
their power, everyone has their
Yeah.
purpose. That kind of it 100%. You're correct.
Yeah. Yeah. What do you think, Heidi?
Well, yeah, that absolutely. And I mean, like I say, there were not as many superhero movies to make fun of at
Mm.
that point. And I think we were talking about at one point, Jimmy and I were talking about maybe watching the specials as well, which I've
Mhm.
never
I've
seen.
never seen either. Yeah.
And you've never seen, which is another kind of mocking superhero team
Yeah.
movie that came out only a couple years later, written by James Gunn, directed by Craig Mazin, and with a
Mhm.
great cast as well,
Wow.
and totally not very well known, obviously.
Yeah.
But I heard, I was at talking about this on Twitter, and some people said, oh, the specials is what this movie should have been. So I just think like it was at the specific, when Bob Burton created the Mystery Men, he was just mocking comic books and tropes and pulp fiction in general. And this movie, and specifically, was kind of a takeoff on the Batman films. As I said earlier, it was the only superhero film movies we had. And I think if they were, could somehow talk someone into making a Mystery Men movie now, obviously it would be have to be a little tighter, but people would just, the jokes would land. I read a few things, and they said something like, that it was ahead of its time because it was you know kicking the tires before the car was, letting the air out of the tires before they'd been fully inflated.
Mm.
So it just, that we weren't so sick of superhero movies at this point that we needed a parody of them.
You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. For
Whereas in
sure.
the comics, there was nothing but superheroes when Bob created this in the 80s. So the parody was very, very timely.
Yeah. So I think
Yeah.
I think that the reason why again didn't do well as everything you said, but also like we've been saying, it was just too long, not well edited, too much, pretty much everything we said. So
Yeah.
multiple reasons why it didn't do well. So yeah.
But
I
Oh,
think
go.
this would work as a series if they ever reboot it more than
Oh
another
yeah,
film. I
yeah.
think it would be a really fun
More time to
watch.
go into each character. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
you could take
Yeah.
that time. They could really like the comedy could be there, could be well written. So it would be a really fun,
Hmm.
energetic like watch,
I
I
mean, we'll
think.
get into it, but I have an idea of who could be in that, maybe. So yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But yeah,
Uh,
but
you know what? It's like if you took a whole, you went shopping and you got a whole bunch of ingredients,
Mhm.
like ginger and garlic and chicken and panko, and put it out there. And
Aaron and
then
I already both have recipes in our head.
Ready to go.
Right. And then Jimmy and I had a cooking competition. Like Jimmy would
Oh,
win.
I'd win. I would win for sure. There's no
There's
question.
no question.
If it was
But
the three of us, Aaron would destroy us. But
Oh,
He
okay.
would.
But I would
I
be
would be
last.
I would be a far second for
I'm Kinka Usher in the cooking competition.
sure.
So
Yeah.
Jimmy, did you recast this?
I did, of course I did. So let's say a modern day retake, and again, this film is barring like Wes Studi and Kel Mitchell, pretty white as usual. It's
Yes.
a '90s
Yes.
film. Um, so let me go into share here. I'm just sharing my screen. Don't need to share sound. So there we go. So first up, we're gonna have is let's just go in random order. I don't think I did everybody, but I did many of them. As Ben Stiller's character.
You're not
Um,
sharing.
no, I'm not. I know I'm not there
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
So thank you. As because I want to surprise you. So as Mr. Furious or Roy, a super whose power is rage, Manny Jacinto from The Good
Yes.
Place. Salute my Filipino brother. What's up?
He's so good in the good
Yeah,
place.
yeah. I think he'd be really great as that. Janine Garofalo, obviously very tough to fill this role as a Bull or Carol, but I'm gonna go with one of my mainstays who I love, Aquafina. There
Of
she is in
course.
Jumanji, looking
Yeah.
all badass, looking
Yeah.
very bowler-esque in Jumanji.
She is definitely a successor to the place of
Yeah,
Janine Garofalo in the
yeah,
world, I think. So
she's
that's
She's got a
great.
actually,
great dry humor
Yeah,
yeah,
she's
that would really, yeah.
fantastic in Raya. She
yeah,
was
yeah.
fantastic in Raya in The Last Dragon. She's so good. Um, Hank Azaria's part, the Blue Raja.
Yeah.
Jeffrey is another one we know well. Great comedic actor, Randall Park.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course.
Great. How
That's
about that?
great. Yes, he's
Imagine.
perfect.
Yeah. William H. Macy as a shoveler. I'm going to do a little gender because they're also a very male heavy cast. Margaret Cho. Come
Yeah.
on. Come
Perfect.
on. Shoveler. I'd see where the show should be great. Greg Kinnear's Captain Amazing. Lance Hunt was his last name. We did a very suave, good looking gentleman who's done some comedy as well. Henry Golding.
Yes.
Our
Very good.
delicious,
You
crazy
only
rich Asian.
You've really picked the only people who could be in this movie.
There you go. Jeffrey Rush as Casanova Frankenstein, another pretty great comedian, Asian comedian here. Kin Jong.
Yeah.
Oh God, he'd be great.
God, he'd be brilliant.
Roman.
And as the Finks, Wes Studi's character, I want to go to the Parasite Oscar-winning film with the lead Song Kang-ho.
Perfect.
Right.
Finks, yeah, I could see him spitting those lines. He, of course, was in our film we're doing next week. He's going to be in Snowpiercer. And as Invisible Boy, again, going to do a little gender switch here, and I still think she's going to take over the world soon. Oh no, sorry, Lana Condor
Ah, yeah.
would be great.
Yes.
Oh,
As the Spleen, I think you may know him from Christmas Vacations. You also know him from oh gosh, the HBO series, the computer guys. I just blanked on
oh,
Silicon Valley.
Silicon Valley. Yeah.
Go back, Jimmy O Yang. There we go. That's right. That's right.
yeah.
As
That'd
a
be great.
Spleen. And Tom Waits, our Dr. Heller. Let's have a distinguished gentleman like Waits is, and maybe could also probably play quirky Daniel Day Kim.
Oh, see, all right. I'm gonna say it should be psyop.
Oh, okay. All right, sure. I'll take that. But yeah,
Okay.
Dan,
It's got to be a cult musician.
yeah. All right, that's fine. Or wait, who'd you say? You said Psy.
You know, the Gangnam Style.
Oh yeah,
guy.
Psy. Oh yeah, Psy. He said Psy up. I was like,
Yeah.
Psy. Oh, yeah, Psy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Oppa Gangnam Style. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, Psy would be great for sure. There you go.
Okay. There. I
Um,
never have casting. That's my one
Good.
casting.
There you go. Claire Forlani, her Monica character, if it had to be in there. Adeline Rudolph, she was Prudence in Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Ooh.
One of the weird sisters.
Yes.
So beautiful. If it's a small role, there she is. She's awesome. Eddie Izzard as Tony Pompadour. I'm gonna go also with this one, and it's gonna be Kelly Marie Tran.
Great.
Who is again
not?
fantastic in Raya, and also her and Aquafina are there together. So why not have them together again here?
Absolutely.
And then just because the Goody Mob, I'm just really the rap group Goody Mob CeeLo. Let's go with some K-pop. Red Velvet. My girls are Red Velvet.
ladies.
Yeah,
Yes.
my girls.
Yes, you
We
can
have
cast all of the
Joy,
villains.
Yeri, Irene, Solgi, and Wendy.
Ah,
Honestly,
Yeah.
if you were in charge of casting Red Velvet, like they would work nonstop.
Oh, I
because
mean, they
you
do
are
work
obsessed with them.
nonstop. Yeah, I love them so much. Yeah, they're great. And finally directed by Hiro Murai. You may know he directed a ton of episodes of Atlanta. He's really good buddies with Charles Gambino. He actually directed the This Is America video.
all
Amazing.
right.
And so he's won awards for directing Atlanta. So he's got a nice comedy background, knows how to keep a show tight, so I think he would do very well with that. So there we go, guys. That is
job.
it. There
Excellent,
we go.
as always.
Yeah.
So
Enjoy.
wow, well, interesting. This is definitely like I went in. Like I said, I started this episode as an inquiry because I honestly didn't know, and I think
Yeah.
we've cracked the Mystery Men code here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
No longer Mr. White didn't do
But
well.
I would watch. I
No.
will. Aaron, you nailed it. This is a comfort food movie. If it's on, I'll watch it. I mean, there's
Just because there's so much hidden little jokes. So
There's-
you like
Yeah.
catch them and it like makes you happy. Yeah.
And yeah, exactly. There's a lot of things in here. Like we've spent this whole, more than an hour talking about all these individual bits that we loved in this movie and that we're quoting and make us happy. So there's definitely a lot of merit to this film also.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Just this needs a little trimming,
Always the ender.
and
the
we're all
editor.
good. We're all
Yeah.
good.
So Jimmy, should we talk about what we're continuing the month with?
Yeah, so the month with, so as I just said earlier, so I had a whole list of these, and we had our little Korean barbecue meeting, and I changed some of my picks and saved them for something else. So I decided I want to do next week's Snowpiercer, the great film by Bong Joon-ho, of course, director of Parasite. This is his first sort of foray where he mixed American and Korean actors together. It stars Chris Evans and Tilda Swinton, but also has Song Kang-ho, as I mentioned, is in it. So he kept some Korean actors in it. If you don't know, it's based on a French comic. I forgot the French title, Trans PS or something like that.
Yes,
I don't know, but,
actually, the
yeah.
artist I
Yeah.
did a panel with at New York
Mhm.
Comic Con one time.
Oh, nice. The
Super
comic is
interesting
great.
Guy.
The
Such an
movie's not there.
interesting guy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So again, based on a comic book, yes, it got some kudos, but it didn't. I don't think it did as well. It got a very word of mouth. So I
And
think
certainly, I mean,
very,
just
very
Bong
ahead of its time.
Joon-ho
Yeah.
has blown up since then.
Yeah.
Obviously Oscar-winning director of Parasite. So it's and Harvey Weinstein.
Mm.
May he rot, may
Yeah.
he rot.
Exactly.
Messed with the movie a lot and wanted to
Yeah.
cut.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was,
Yeah. Bong talked about that a
it
lot.
was
Yeah.
definitely a little bit not appreciated at the time
Mm,
that it came
yeah.
out. It's a troubled launch, but a really great
Yeah. But
film.
it also set up a lot. You see a lot of other
Yeah.
movies sort of take from there. What is that? We'll talk about it. But it's
Yes.
next week.
And
But
anyway,
yeah.
yes, yeah, we don't need to,
Yeah.
but just a
Yeah.
little preview. And then the next week, I think Erin might be joining us again
What are you
Oh.
for
doing?
Popeye.
Oh, look at that.
Oh, I love
Now,
shows.
Somehow
Oh, Robert
squeezed a
Williams.
musical into
yes,
this month.
but Robert Altman's Popeye. I'll
Yep.
leave it at that. No more need be said.
Yeah. And we round the end off with a not very well known film, but I love this film. Again, based on some French comic called The Extraordinary Adventures of Adele Adele Blanc-Sec. And it came out in 2010, and I saw it probably 2014 or 15, and it's fantastic. It should have been
Mhm.
this series of movies. It's a French film, so it didn't really hit over here. I think it might have played some festivals and hit some smaller theaters.
Well, I think we're,
but it's great.
again, French comics are a lot more accepted, even
Oh,
in 10
they're
11
huge.
years later. So, it's
Yeah,
a little too soon.
yeah, for
So
sure.
this is great. Really enjoyed this conversation
Yeah.
about the Mystery Man, reliving the movie. And so until next time, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't want to miss a single exciting episode of Comic Beat Insider. And until next time, I am Heidi McDonald, editor of The Beat, comicsbeat.com, and on all social media as Comixace, Comixace.
And I'm Jimmy Aquino, the host producer of Comic News Insider, the weekly podcast covering comics, TV, film, and pop culture. ComicNewsInsider.com. You can find me on the socials at Jimmy Aquino, JIMMYAQUINO.
Erin Crosby on Twitter. I'm at Erin Crosby Sings, and on Instagram, I'm at Erin Crosby Makes for all of your dog, flower, and food needs.
Excellent. Well, thank you for joining us, listening, watching, whatever. Until next time.